Hello, I will be talking about Bhisma or Devavratha today. So, Bhisma, who has a significant role in Mahabharata and also has many contributions in the storyline of Mahabharata. So, he was a great commander in chief who participated in the Kurukshetra war on behalf of the Gaurava army, and he was also the son of Shantanu and Ganga. So the birth of Bhishma is comprehensively described in the Adi Parva of Mahabharata, where Shantanu, who was from the lineage of Chandravamsa, once went to the riverside to hunt some animals. There he saw a beautiful young woman who was Ganga herself. So Shantanu will proceed to request her to marry him, for which Ganga accepted his request, but under one certain condition. So the condition was not to interfere or ask any questions to Ganga while she was indulged or performing any activity. So to which Shantanu blindly agreed because he was at that time completely was blinded by the beauty of Ganga. So later they will both get married, and Shantanu and Ganga will have their first kid. But Ganga will proceed to drown that baby on the river. Looking at this, Shantanu will be shocked but will not ask any question as he will remember the condition that was set before their marriage. As days goes, Ganga and Shantanu will continue to have kids, but Ganga Devi proceeds to drown each of her kid in the river. So Shantanu, absolutely worried by her activity and was unable to tolerate her activity anymore, he will interfere when the eighth child was born. And Shantanu will question Ganga about why she is doing all of this and who actually she is. So faced with this question, she will reveal herself as Ganga for the first time to Shantanu, and she will start explaining her backstory or her side of the story to Shantanu. So once there were Vasudevas who with their wives were spending time in the forest. Then Diyu, who is one of the Vasudeva's wife, will notice a cow and she wanted that cow so badly. So they decided to steal that cow, which is originally belonged to Vasishtar. So that cow was a divine cow, and also it was belonged to Vasishtar. And looking at this, Vasishtar, out of furiousness, will curse all of them to be born again and will undergo a lot of suffering on earth. Hearing this, all of the Vasus will plead for mercy, and later Vasishta will calm down and will say that the seven Vasus will be born on earth and can attain freedom immediately. But since Diyu was the one who tried stealing the cow initially, he will live longer on earth. And that is why all the Vasus will ask Ganga to give them birth and then make them drown on the river, which is why Ganga drowned all the seven kids on the river. So, explaining this story to Shantanu, hearing this story, Shantanu will be worried, and since the condition was broken, Ganga will proceed to leave Shantanu all alone. And also, she'll promise that she will return the eighth kid once he is all grown. Now, Shantanu is completely indulged in sadness and loneliness. So that kid was later named as Devavratha by Ganga, and he was grown by many powerful saints and gets practiced by a lot of saints. After so many years, Shantanu will be inferred by a young man who stopped the flow of river by his arrows. Later, Ganga will appear and introduce Devavratha to Shantanu. Hearing this, looking at his son after so long, Shantanu will be so happy and he will take Devavratha to his palace. So time flies, and Shantanu once went to the forest and will notice a fisherwoman who was known as Satyavati. So Shantanu will ask her father to allow him to marry her, to which Satyavati's father will agree but under one condition. He said that only Satyavati's children are allowed to or can be allowed to rule the kingdom. But since Shantanu already wanted Devavata to be the next heir and wanted to rule the kingdom, hearing this, Shantanu will become sad. But also he wanted Satyavati to marry, so hence he will be in a confused state and he will start to spend days on his bed. Devavrata, noticing his father's sadness, he will ask the minister about what happened and will get to know about the details. Then Devavratha will meet Satyavati's father by visiting his home and will promise that he won't rule the kingdom. But Satyavati's father will start to state that later Devavratha's kids and Satyavati's kids will start to have some conflict between them when it is about to rule the kingdom. To this, Devavratha ensured that he won't marry for his entire lifetime and will continue to practice brahmacharya for his entire life just to satisfy his father's happiness. Because of this, Devavratha was named as Bhisma later. So later Shantanu and Satyavati gets married and had two kids named as Chitrangada and Vishitraviryan. After Shantanu gets passed away and still Satyavati's kids were not old enough to rule the kingdom, Bhishma helped ruling the kingdom for a while, but the kingdom was originally under Satyavati. Then Chitrangada becomes the ruler of the kingdom, but soon Chitrangada gets killed by Gandharval in a war. Then Bhishma wanted Visitraviryan to be married, for which Bhishma went to Kasi and brought Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika for Visitraviryan to marry. Because of this incident, Bhishma and the Lord Parashuraman will later have a war, which we will look into it later. But for now, Amba originally has her heart to Salvan, who was another king to which Bhishma respected it and sent Amba away. Amba will then request Salvan to marry her, but since she was forcefully taken away from the palace, and also since Bhishma ashamed him in front of everyone, he will refuse to marry Amba. Hearing this, Amba will again return to Bhishma and then ask Vishitraviryan to marry her. But since she already loved someone, he will also refuse to marry her. So, standard alone by everyone, Amba will become furious and she wanted to kill Bhishma and asked every king to kill him, to which they all refused because they were afraid of Bhishma. Later, she will meet Parashuraman, who was the teacher of Devavratha, also known as Bhishma, and will explain her story to him. So Parashuraman, hearing her story, will then meet Bhishma and will ask him to marry Amba. But Bhishma will refuse as he was practicing brahmacharyam and he will continue to practice brahmacharyam for his entire life. So hearing this, Parashuraman was angered by him, and then Parashuraman and Bhishma starts to have a war that lasted for nearly 23 days. On the 24th day, when Bhishma decided to use a weapon called Prasupasthiram against Parashuraman, which could literally destroy the earth, he was then interfered by Narada and was requested to stop the war. Hence, the war did not come to any conclusion and Amba did not find any solution at all. Later, Amba decided to practice Suravaram to attain help from Shiva, and Shiva appeared and blessed her that she will seek her revenge on her next birth but not on this one. Hearing this, Amba became happy and she ended her life and was again born as Shikanti as a daughter of Duryodan king at the Panchala kingdom. Then Vishitraviryan passes away due to a disease and all his wives becomes widow. So Satyavati was afraid that there will be no heir to the kingdom and so she asked Bhishma to marry them. But Bhishma will strongly refuse it as he was practicing brahmacharya. So later Satyavati will bring her first child Vyasa and requested his help. So through Vyasa, Ambika had Dhritarashtra and Ambalika had Pandu and another maid had Vidura as their kids. Bhishma raised them and helped them marry later. So through which Dhritarashtra married Gandhari and Pandu married Kunti and Madari. So now let us talk about the role of Bhishma in the Kurukshetra war. So at the Kurukshetra war, Bhishma was the commander-in-chief for almost 10 days on behalf of the Kaurava army. He was a strong warrior as he was trained under Parashuraman, and even though he was 5 generations older, yet nobody can fight as hard as him. At the beginning of the war, he took an oath that he would not kill any of the Pandavas, and hence he was not fully interested in that war. Knowing this, Duryodhana approached Bhishma and accused him of not fighting well in the war. So on the next day, Bhishma and Arjuna had a great war between them, where Bhishma caused some injuries to Arjuna. Because of this, Krishna became angry, and since he promised that he would not use any weapons against anyone, he started to take the chariot's wheel and started to threaten Bhishma. But Arjuna calmed Krishna down and made him to return to the chariot. So the Pandavas were all discussing on how to defeat Bhishma, to which Krishna answered that they could defeat Bhishma by bringing Shikanti in front of him, so that he will down all his weapons. Everybody agreed to it at one point and brought Shikanti to the battleground on the 10th day of the war. Seeing Shikanti on the battleground, Bhishma immediately uh, made all his weapons down, and Arjuna, who was standing behind Shikanti, starts to attack Bhishma with a number of arrows. Because of that, Bhishma will be lying down on the arrow bed. After the war, when Bhishma was on the deathbed, he told Yudhishthira about the duties of a king and how a king should be in a beautiful way even on his deathbed. So at last, while lying on the arrow bed, Bhishma decided to end his life after being 58 days on the arrow bed. So in conclusion, we can learn a lot about Bhishma and his character. He always followed the Dharma's path and always stick to his promises, right? So one should learn how to be dharmic and how one should stick to his promises from Bhishma. So this is about Bhishma briefly. Hope you liked it. Thank you.